Welcome to Clear to Close, Austin Real Estate Law and Title.
Welcome to Clear to Close, Austin Real Estate Law and Title with Ed Ishmael of Midtown Title and Ishmael Law Firm in Austin, Texas. Midtown works with builders, developers, agents, and lenders on residential and commercial real estate transactions with a strong focus on infill development and condo regime projects. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about why condo regimes have become such a major part of how Austin is approaching density and infill development. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Ed, before we kind of get into the condo regimes themselves, I'd like to start with a little bit about your background on you and how Midtown Title and Ishmael Law Firm became so involved in Austin infill development and those condo regime projects.
Well, in 2006, we opened our title and law office, and we catered to the Austin gay and lesbian community mostly back then. It was sort of a niche way to start our operation. I would say maybe 2009, 2010, one of our builder clients approached me and asked if I could help him with this new type of development where developers were going into infill lots, which we can explain what those are a little later, and building two houses where there used to be one. And I was like, sure, we could help you do that. And he was our first client. And then from then on, he introduced us to other clients, and we became one of the top law firms for doing infill development, small condo regimes in Austin.
Wow. So, with that being said, what is a condo regime and what makes that structure fundamentally different from a traditional subdivision in the state of Texas?
So a condo regime is a type of ownership. So is like fee simple ownership. Subdivisions create fee simple lots, meaning if you buy a lot in a subdivision, you're going to own the dirt that it sits on and anything that is included as an improvement on the lot. And subdivisions can be what you would see when there's a large raw land tract, where a developer goes in and has to build streets, has to put in street lights, has to put in sewer lines, water lines, essentially has to go in and add all of the infrastructure that you would normally think of in a neighborhood. Condo regimes, after a city allows for a certain number of dwellings on a lot, condo regimes are imposed as a way of owning that lot. The lots for a subdivision, again, are owned fee simple, but the ownership in a condominium regime is essentially owning a box of air that is defined as the unit. And that box of air can be an apartment or condo in a high rise, or it can be a house sitting on property, on land, or it can be what we call site condominiums, which is what we normally do. And we can explain what that is later.
So, Austin's development landscape has changed dramatically over that last decade. What makes condo regimes become such an important tool for builders and developers here?
Again, the main benefit of a condo regime is that you don't have to go through the subdivision process. In Austin, the subdivision process is a long, drawn-out, expensive process. And so developers who are wanting to go into neighborhoods that already exist. So again, going back to what I explained before about, there are some subdivisions and there's some subdividing that creates subdivisions in more rural, more underdeveloped areas of a city. So you go in with where there is raw land, you impose the infrastructure, you create essentially a neighborhood. But another type of subdivision is where you can have an existing lot. So you go into an existing subdivision where there are already lots created, and you develop or want to develop a particular lot, generally a larger lot. And to do that, you may want to divide that lot. So the question is, how do you divide the lot? And there are only two ways really to divide the lot. One is through a subdivision process where you go in and on that one lot, you draw a dividing line somehow, and you go through a city process where it creates two lots. Or you can take that one lot and impose a condo regime on that lot. And in that way, you create two separate parcels. In the eyes of the city, it's still one lot and you don't have to subdivide. But when you impose that condo regime, then you have created these two separate parcels. The reason that's important and the reason why a developer wants to take an existing infill lot and divide it is so that they can build on it. For instance, a builder will go into a subdivision, find a lot that they like, and they want to build, let's say, two dwellings on that lot. Well, for the developer, they want to maximize their profit. And in order to maximize their profit, they're going to want to sell each of those dwellings to separate people. And again, the only way you can do that is to either impose a subdivision, which is very expensive and takes a very long time to do, and builders avoid that, or impose a condo regime, because then you will have two separate legal descriptions that can be used to sell those two separate dwellings to two separate people.
Why does the condo regime structure work especially well for those smaller infill projects inside existing Austin neighborhoods?
Because it's easier for a developer to go in and add additional dwellings to an already existing lot that already has infrastructure, water lines, sewer lines, electrical lines. And again, if they impose a condo regime in order to sell however many units, however many dwellings they place on that lot, they can sell each one of them to a separate individual without having to go through that long, drawn out subdivision process.
From a development strategy standpoint, what flexibility does a condo regime create that developers may not get through more traditional development models?
Well, again, the main reason why developers in Austin choose to impose a condo regime on an infill lot is to avoid the subdivision process. There are benefits to a condo regime, and then there are some drawbacks that we often have to explain to buyers. So again, there can be benefits and detriments to creating the condo regime, but because it is so much easier to create a condo regime, impose a condo regime, than to go through the subdivision process, that's why developers choose to impose condo regimes. Austin, over the last few years, has been more and more committed to increasing density in and around the central part of Austin, especially. And one of the aspects of what they've done is allow more units, more dwellings to be built on a lot in Austin. So over the years, Austin has allowed a second dwelling to be built on an already existing infill lot. Then later on, they have expanded that just more recently under the home initiative to allow for up to 3 dwellings on a lot. So if you're allowing 3 dwellings on a lot, then again, a developer is going to want to sell each of those dwellings to an separate individual person, because that will maximize their profit. And the only way to do that is to either subdivide or impose a condo regime. So under this new home ordinance that allows for up to 3 dwellings per lot, 4 dwellings per lot under very limited circumstances, it has even made condo regimes more attractive in the city of Austin.
Good stuff. And so, kind of looking ahead, how do you see condo regimes continuing to shape Austin's growth as land becomes more limited and density, conversations continue evolving?
I think developers are always going to choose imposing a condo regime on an infill lot when they're wanting to build multiple dwellings over subdividing. Because even though there are reforms that are happening in Austin regarding the subdivision process, making it faster, hopefully less expensive, it's still going to be a longer and more expensive process than imposing a condo regime. So in the future, I think Austin will continue to use this form of ownership that avoids the expense and time of a subdivision.
Mm, good stuff. Ed, thank you so much for your time, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Clear to Close, Austin Real Estate Law Entitled with Ed Ishmael of Midtown Title and Ishmael Law Firm. If you'd like to learn more about Midtown Title, Ishmael Law Firm, or condo, regime, and infill development projects in the Austin area, visit midtowntitle.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and join us next time for another conversation about real estate development, title, and legal strategy in Austin. We'll see you all next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.